Capital is Regina. Capital is Regina.
Back over again, please.
Here, this is a good one here. Okay, here we go. Thank you. We got it.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Goodbye. It only gets better from here on out.
Okay, great. Thank you.
This is what he needs.
Yay!
There we go. Hey, Jen, what's
Oh,
going
no,
on?
that's it, huh?
Hey, ready for milk, please? Oh, great hair.
Jen, up here on the left-hand side.
Can I borrow you, Jennifer?
Right here?
Right on the left over here, Jennifer.
Oh, you're good at that.
Right here. Nice smile. Nice smile. Right there. Yeah.
Right
There you
up on
go.
top, Jennifer.
There you go.
Jennifer up on top here. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jen,
A little over the
Jen,
shoulder.
then right, my eyes right here, please. Right here, Jen. Right there.
Jennifer right here.
You're all
Yay!
We spend all our time here. I want to make a paradise.
She redid all of it, every last detail. And she breathed life back into every room.
Are you happy?
I love you. Please, come in.
Hello.
Hello. He's a stranger. We're just gonna let him sleep in our house. Hello.
Hello.
Did you know he had a wife? He has pictures of you in his luggage.
What were you doing in their luggage?
What do they want?
God help you.
They've come here to see me.
Come quick! You're insane! You're insane!
All I'm trying to do is bring life into this house. Open the door to new people, new ideas.
I'm so sorry.
Get out of my house!
You give and you give and you give. It's just never enough.
We spend all our time here. I want to make a paradise.
She redid all of it, every last detail. And she breathed life back into every room.
Are you happy?
I love you. please, come in.
Hello.
Hello. He's a stranger. We're just gonna let him sleep in our house. Hello.
Hello.
Did you know he had a wife? He has pictures of you in his luggage.
What were you doing in their luggage?
What do they want?
God help you.
They've come here to see me.
Come quick! You're insane! You're insane!
All I'm trying to do is bring life into this house. Open the door to new people, new ideas.
I'm so sorry.
Get out of my house!
You give and you give and you give. It's just never enough.
Thank you very much. Welcome to tonight's screening.
God, I want to see more movies like this, movies that are just creative for the sake of being creative and free.
We sold out the Elgin Theater!
My people! Toronto Film Festival!
Great films, they leave me feeling a little more alive and connected, and they remind me to laugh and hope and hurt and feel.
I just want to tell great stories, and I want to tell different stories. We don't only have to tell one type of story.
Hi, everybody. I'm Eric Cohn, and just a quick introduction here. To my left, we have the director of Mother, Darren Aronofsky. To his left, the star, Jennifer Lawrence, and our producers, Ari Handel and Scott Franklin. Welcome, guys. So, Darren, since the 9 a.m. press screening this morning, I've heard maybe 4 or 5 different interpretations of this movie. But maybe just to sort of lay the groundwork here, what were some of the ideas that you were sort of thinking about when you first started writing this thing?
Well, I love, the whole sort of campaign has been about mystery, and I think the film plays out very much like a mystery. As you're watching it, you think you're watching one thing, and then it shifts and becomes something else, and it shifts and becomes another thing. So I like that, and so I don't want to give too much away about what it is, and so I kind of encourage people.
I will. I've been doing it all day.
Okay. I encourage people to, avoid spoilers and just, if you're up for the roller coaster ride, come take it.
So, Jen, what's the movie about?
I haven't done it right in front of Darren yet, but I mean, it's when he first came to me, it's allegorical. It's these huge metaphors that are universal, biblical, and he's created a narrative through them and placed everything into this under the house. It was just incredible and unique. I had never heard anything like it.
This is a question for the producers. I mean, there are so many different ways of talking about this movie. We just watched the trailer for it, which actually doesn't spoil as much as people might think. But what were some of the challenges from your standpoint in terms of giving shape to this thing, especially since it is a studio movie and it's not a traditional one?
I mean, fortunately, we had the luxury of having Darren at the helm of it. So we were granted an appropriate bit of latitude to be able to make the film that we wanted to make under a little bit of protection and secrecy, so that we can then, when we're asked to talk about it, instead of actually talk about it, encourage people to go and see it and experience it.
And before we take some questions from some of the other journalists here, Darren, what was the biggest challenge for you in terms of making sure that you could land this movie? Because, again, we don't want to say too much about what happens here, but the ending of the movie is just such a intense experience, and so many things just keep happening. So I have to imagine figuring out that balance of, you know, how far you're willing to take people on this journey must have been tricky for you.
You know, that line is always a tricky line, and there'll always be some people who will think I cross it, and there will be other people that don't think it's enough. All my films always have that. You know, like I had a big sort of debate with the studio in Black Swan over the scene where Natalie's legs snap back. And then, you know, when I saw it with an audience here in Toronto, what year? 2010? So I don't remember, but I remember the gasps from the crowd and the screams and the cries and all the weird reactions. And for me, that was the great reward. So I think there's definitely, more than any film I've done, we've gotten really close to that line and really are pushing it. But I think the film does come with a warning. It's you know, it's a very intense ride, and only take it if you want to see something very new and very different.
Any questions from the journalists here? Yes, in the front row.
Noah Taylor from dorkshelf.com. Darren, I heard this was written in a very short period of time. I was wondering if that's true, and also what some of your writing habits are. Do you listen to music? Where do you like to write, etc.?
Interesting. It's become a little bit of a fiction that I wrote in 5 days. It's true. I had this idea. I didn't tell anyone about it. I didn't tell my producing partners who I share everything with, including, well, things you don't want to know. And it was just sort of haunting me, the idea. And then I had this 5-day weekend where I was all alone in my house, and I said, you know what? I suddenly thought about Genesis, I thought about Revelations, I thought about all these things, and it sort of gave me all these ideas for structuring it, and that allowed me to kind of unleash that mythology and that mythological structure onto this allegory, and it all kind of made sense. And then these 5 days, it just poured out. And then I showed it to those guys, and they were like, it's crazy, but there's something there, we should do it. And then I showed Jennifer, and she was like, in. And then suddenly you have Jennifer Lawrence, you have a movie. And then we're like, oh shoot, we actually have to make it. So we really did try to rework it a lot. And we talked to some friends who were writers and got their notes and had some input from them. But as soon as you started to pull it apart, it kind of crumbled. It kind of lost its structure. There was some type of weird dream logic that sort of came that I think captured the emotion of that moment, which was like, Ari calls it impotent rage. I don't like to be called impotent, but I call it restless rage. And I think that's kind of what it was all about. And then, to be fair, it was very symbolic, but part of the requirement for Jennifer and Javier Bardem was that we were going to do 3 months rehearsal. And in that 3 months, character started to come alive. And Javier was really hard on pushing to understand his character and trying to figure out this balance between love and self-adulation. And then Jennifer had an incredible reaction to that. And together, the two of them, with all of us sitting in a room together, started to sort of fuse into something else.
Yes, ma'am, up front. Yes, you.
Hello. I'm Lauren Veneziani from WBAL TV, NBC Baltimore. I love the movie so much. I saw it this morning, and I don't want to give anything away because I think everyone should experience it organically. But I was wondering for you, Jennifer, I really love the scenes between you and Michelle Pfeiffer and all of that back and forth. I'm wondering, after filming was done and just cut off and you were done for the day, what was it like on set with Michelle and Ed Harris? Since your character's kind of reserved from them and keeping her distance, what was it like for you when you were finally done filming, and how was the set after all of that?
We had a blast. I loved Michelle. It took me about 2 days to kind of get over her beauty, to be able to go up to her and be like, hi. But she's fantastic. She's very warm. She's normal. She's a mom and just a really smart, great woman. And and it was very fun with Ed and Javier. We had a really good time. I know it probably doesn't seem like it from the movie, but we had a really good time filming it.
Yeah, let's go to the gentleman over here. Yep. Just wait for the microphone, please, since this is live streamed.
Hey guys, this is Raúl Pinto from Radio Voces Latinas. Jennifer, you have mentioned before that even when you're like working a lot in your characters, you always try to play when you're filming, right? To have fun, even when it's like too deep or dramatic. Then, how easy was for you to feel scared when you got people like Ed Harris or Michelle Pfeiffer going after you and giving those looks that we just saw in the trailer, and feeling intimidated? You already mentioned that you feel intimidated as soon as you see Michelle Pfeiffer. But while acting, how easy was for you seeing their acting in order to intimidate you?
Well, fortunately, I'm supposed to be kind of intimidated already, so that probably worked in my favor. I mean, it was amazing getting to work with them. I mean, I worked with some of the best actors in the world. I mean, they were incredible. And I forgot the first part of your question. What was it? It was what? How? Oh, well, you know, I mean, I don't really carry a lot around, you know, it's just work, you know, normally, you know, between action and cut, I can feel it, and then by cut, I like to shake it off and not dwell in a really horrible place. There was only one scene in the whole movie that I had trouble kind of snapping out of, and if you see the movie, you'll understand what I'm talking about. But it was Ed and Michelle certainly made me better, and Javier as well.
Yeah, up front.
Hello, Taiwan Wade, Huffington Post. My question is for Jennifer. This is your first movie, I think, in 5 years working with a new director, excluding Serena. I don't know if that's true. Yeah. So I just want to know, how have you grown as an actress from the time that you were on the Bill and Golf Show? And what advice would you give to yourself about this industry starting out?
I mean, this movie kind of pulled me apart and put me back together. Working with Darren, it was just a completely different character from anything I've ever done and anything that I felt like was inside me. It was so, I don't even know where to begin on what I learned from this movie. I mean, I learned to create different aspects of a personality that don't really exist. I wouldn't have been able to do it if it weren't for Darren. I wouldn't have been able to access that or find that. And the advice I would give myself about the industry, probably make sure you know how much else everyone else is getting paid before you say yes.
Yes, sir.
Bruce Kirkland, Toronto Sun, and Post Media News Network. Don't even know where I work. In any case, rehearsal period, fascinated by that. It's almost unheard of, except with a few English directors these days, that you would actually develop characters in rehearsal for that length of time anyway. Can you talk about the experience of doing that as, in contrast to the normal way that films are forced to be made, usually because of financial reasons?
Yeah, I've never done anything like that, and it was incredible because every day we talked about our characters, and every day we went deep into everything. We discovered new things. We had a chalk outline of the house, and the movie has its own language with the camera. There's everything's from my point of view. I think there's only 2 masters in the whole.
Yeah, the whole
movie?
film is shot either over her shoulder, on her face, or what she's looking at.
So it has its own language that we had to get used to, and we had to learn this kind of choreography with the cameramen. So we would walk through the outline, the chalk outline of the house, so that by the time we got there and we got in the house, we all kind of flowed as one. And I've never been on a movie that has a language with the camera. I've never been on a movie where the camera would be so close to my damn face.
66 minutes of the 2-hour-long film is a close-up of Jennifer. And you're never bored. You're never claustrophobic. That's all because of her.
And notably, you shot on film, so every second kind of counts in that context.
Yeah, it was shooting 16 millimeter is just an amazing. It's incredibly technically difficult at this point to shoot 16, even though that's how a lot of us as students started, was on 16, but now barely anyone processes it anymore. No one really deals with it anymore. How many labs are left?
Nobody even, it's almost as if nobody even knows how to deal with it anymore. It's like, you know, the people who work in film at the labs, you know, they're all retired and gone, and the people who are at the labs now work in strictly the digital format. So it's like sometimes you'd bring, especially 16, to a lab, and there's nobody there who knows how to handle it. So it's technically really, really challenging, and you've got to know what you're doing or have someone on your team that knows what you're doing to help guide them through it.
So why 16 millimeter?
Well, I think it's beautiful. I think the problem with all these beautiful cameras are that the images end up very, very similar, and everything's starting to look exactly the same, you know. But with 16, you have an immediate patina and an immediate abstraction, an immediate thing that makes it a piece of work. And then if you get a DP like Matthew Libatique, who I remember when we were timing, I was like, oh, the whole film feels like slightly burnt butter, or the cover of a really good surface of a good tiramisu or something. It had kind of has that feeling, but it has a feeling that nothing else there in the marketplace has, and I think that was the objective of this film, was to make a unique movie, because people, including myself, we keep complaining about how we keep seeing the same movie over and over again, so we really wanted to go and do something different. We might have gone too far, but we definitely made a different ride in the amusement park.
Yes, sir, towards the back.
Hi, Kenny from Film Magazine Indonesia. This is for Darren and Jen. This is an intense horror. There are so many intense scenes when I watched it this morning. If you were ever to work again in a film and you could choose the genre, which one would you choose and to work together again? Thank you.
She told me she would never work with me again.
That was just when I was healing after the movie. I think you could do a comedy. I'd like to see you do a comedy.
Knock, knock.
Oh, jeez.
Actually, there's a lot of knock, knock in this movie.
The punchline is the movie.
There's actually a lot of humor in the movie. That was what was interesting. The Brits. Are there any Brits here? Did you see the movie? They thought it was really funny. The Brits were like, it's a comedy.
Yeah, I'm British. Did you see the movie?
Was there humor on the set? I mean, did you guys mess around at all?
I mean, it's the same team that's been making these movies all the time, and so it's like a family. And when we call cut, everyone makes fun of each other, and But the only time we get serious is between action and cut. The rest of the time, we're having a good time.
Yes, in the front row here, the red suit.
Velvet jacket.
Yeah, hard to miss.
I'm getting a lot of compliments over my Christmas jacket. Jennifer, after seeing the script for the first time and a new director, did you have any hesitations? And if there was, what were they, or was it an instant yes for you?
It was an instant yes before I even read anything. He told me his ideas, and I thought that they were just brilliant and unique and challenging. And so I was in immediately. I've been a fan of his for years. I think he's bold and brave. And I think I said brilliant, but I've been a fan. So once he just told me of the ideas that were floating around in his head, I said yes, and then I got a script. And when I read it, I threw it across the room and told him he had severe psychological problems, but it's a masterpiece. No, I didn't have any hesitations.
Very big fans. Everybody's a big fan as well, but Black Swan was for a country that's filled with ballet, so thank you.
Notably, you just got back from Venice. What is your sense of how this movie can play around the world to different kinds of sensibilities?
I think it's going to be it's going to be interesting wherever it plays. I definitely started to feel a difference, as I was pointing out. I felt the difference between the Italians and the British and the French. already, and that's interesting to me. I haven't quite digested what it means yet, but you know, I'm excited for the worldwide release by Paramount Pictures, who have the ability to really get it out into the market, and they're doing a great job selling it, and they're having so much fun with the marketing. I think if there was an award for marketing, there may be, I don't even know, but they've been just so brave and bold in all the different things they're pushing forward that it's just, as a filmmaker, I've been very spoiled by that. It's great.
We have time for just a few more here. I see a hand here. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Jennifer. I work for a Chinese website, Maoyan Movie. I have a question for director. So it's about the name of the movie. When you have the ideas, do the name come the first, or when you finish the old script, that's you know that there will be a name. And one more for the it's like a signature on the poster, like the mother. So is that your signature or?
I think the first 6 letters I wrote was mother. You know, I just typed that in before I even started in lowercase at the beginning, and then I sat there for a second and I put the exclamation point, and then it became really part of it. The reason there's a lowercase letter is there is a reason, and I haven't really seen anyone pick up on the reason yet, but if you look closely at the movie, you will figure out the reason. All the clues are there. And then I realized actually, because I don't know if you've seen the film, the exclamation point is sort of like a line down and a dot. And I realized actually the exclamation point is kind of the structure of the film, just sort of a straight down line into a hit at the bottom. So I was like, oh, that's kind of cool too. So I don't know, I might be reading into the symbols, but it was always about mother. The film was always about mother. That was always the goal, was to tell the story of not your mother, not my mother, but our mother, the mother that has given us all life, and to tell the history of humanity with mother in an allegory. And then all these other ideas started to come in, and that was sort of the lightning strike of that said, oh wow, I could actually tell a very human story here about an older guy and a younger woman and their marriage starting to fall apart. But that was the sort of tango the two stories started to take together.
She also asked about the lettering. Was it, whose handwriting was that?
The lettering was, I mean, it's supposed to be, it's the same lettering as Javier's character writes. So the same artist who did that lettering was training Javier to write calligraphy. And his name's David Chang. He's a great calligrapher. And then I asked him to work on the title. And I mean, we worked on that title. I mean, he must have done, how many drafts, sorry? Hundreds and hundreds. Hundreds till we found the right mother. And then he hand wrote all the credits in the film.
So before we let you guys go, the movie's opening on close to 3,000 screens in North America this week. That's what they tell me.
Wow.
So one thing I'm wondering is, you know, given how much you've tried to keep this a secret, now it's going to be out in the world, what do you suggest people tell their friends about this movie to get them to see it without the whole spoiler thing entering into it?
I don't think the allegory is a spoiler. I think it really aids you. We've gone back and forth on this, and I think it would be a shame to go see this movie and not know what you're looking at. There's so many things when we were on set where even I would be like, oh, I wonder if that's that, or I would hear, you know, in the second movie, or the second time I saw the movie, we have a sequel. The second time I saw the movie, I heard Javier's character say, well, where will they go? Where will they go? And then I realized, oh, this is Earth. There is nowhere else. There's nowhere else for anybody to go. So I think it's, if you know the allegory, share the allegory. I think it's beautiful. I think it's powerful and genius. I don't see it as a spoiler, but maybe you'll have me execute.
No, I look. This is not the type of movie that, you know, a pet peeve with a few people on this stage is when I go to a movie, because I'm really gullible in movies and I get lost in them, and they lean over and they say, oh, this is what's going to happen, and they ruin the movie for me. no matter what happens, you can't have this movie ruined for you. I promise you, it's really weird and different. And so I feel free, just tell people it's an experience to have. That's what I want. I mean, I was talking to the head of marketing, no, not Jennifer, but the head of marketing at Paramount, and she said something really cool. Because I've been saying, like, this is that weird loop-de-loop roller coaster ride in the amusement park. She said, you know what, you built this roller coaster outside of the park, and it's operated by the really weird guy, so you should be really worried about going on it. And I kind of like that type of analysis too.
I think a lot of us can't wait to go on the ride again. So thanks for being here.
Thank you,
Eric. Thanks for sticking around.
Thank you, Toronto.